Hello, and bienvenue. Today, Christopher Driver is I, and with me is Jordan Roy here on Frivolous Gravitas for episode 15, where the soup du jour is the subject of forgiveness. Today, Jordan's going to take us through the concept of forgiveness, and we'll hash out some ideas and thoughts on how it is applied and what it is, what it means to us. So, with that, I'll let Jordan take the reins and.
Oh, that's episode 15 already. I hope someone's watching. But I've been bandying about with this idea for a while because it serves me quite well in my personal life in multiple ways, and it often is dismissed, but in my studies of Christian faith and morality, and over the course of my history studies, because you can't really avoid Christianity when you're studying history, especially if you go back a couple hundred years or so, or if you're learning about the end of the Roman Empire and stuff like that. You need to understand the Christian faith, at least to some extent, because you won't be able to understand a lot of the actions that people were taking in history without it, especially if you're looking at something like the Reformation. You can't understand the Reformation without understanding the background or the philosophical underpinnings of it. If you're actually interested in that, I guess Ryan Reeves has a good podcast. I don't know if he runs it anymore, but he's a theologist who runs history of the Christian religion, and he does a really good job of explaining it. Anyway, plugging someone. I'm not being paid. Like his channel.
Yeah, not affiliated, we should point out.
Yeah.
In case he gets ornery about it.
Yeah. Now, one of the things, though, is that even now, full disclosure, I'm not Christian. I don't follow the core tenets of that faith, much to, I'm sure, the disappointment of certain people in my life who we still care for each other. So, which is more important to me. But I still see the value in a lot of the teachings, not all of them, but in the core fundamentals that underpin that faith, there is a lot that is worth engaging in. And one of the core values is forgiveness. Now, forgiveness, it does sound like a fancy word. We use it and we bandy it about all the time, and it's this fluffy philosophical thing that we don't really think of very often. But it is one of the most powerful things at our disposal in creating peace between people, between groups of people, and between us and ourselves. And I think it's worthy to explore it due to that. Now, the other thing is that it's probably, if you're doing it properly, it's probably one of the hardest things that you probably could do, which is why, it's really easy to attack. It's really easy to, throw a fist or to have a Twitter fight or something like that. It's really hard to try and understand the other side, even though you don't have to agree with it, and be like, either ask or give forgiveness. And to preface this, this doesn't mean I'm a pacifist at all. In fact, far from it. I believe in peace. I don't believe that humans are capable of perfect peace. There's always going to be, bunch of drunk people get together and look at a car and start smashing it. Oops.
But how would you define pacifism then? Just to sort of
Well, like total pacifism. Like I will not raise a fist in anger to any object, animal, or man.
except in self-defense kind of thing.
Not even in self-defense.
Oh,
so
you're a pure pacifist then, in my opinion.
Well, no, that's how I would define pacifism.
I see.
I'm not a pure pacifist.
I got you. Sorry.
If someone tries to come for me or mine, I'll drop them.
Gotcha.
And I probably won't I won't feel very much remorse.
But the pure pacifist would be like the radical, I guess.
Yeah, and I've met them, and they're admirable in their way, because they have that and they almost have that purity of action that they can subscribe to, and it is a moral and an ethical thing. I almost equate it with sobriety. They choose not to because they see it as a poison, and to some extent violence is. Now I'm of the opinion that, no, it's an opinion I guess, but that man was created to some extent to be capable of it if it's necessary, but like to prefer peace is definitely the higher path, and we've definitely learned that in the last 100 years, and it's slowly becoming more and more ingrained in our society, but you can't eradicate. There's always going to be, chaotic nature. You get up your day, have a bad day, you do a few stupid things, and you punch a guy in the face. Oops. Like, honestly, I'm not saying you shouldn't be held accountable for your actions because you had a bad day, but we don't always have the best judgment, and sometimes we don't have the best judgment as groups of people, but which is why we come together and talk. Now, to that, and don't want to get into pacifism, but pacifism is also really boring. You're not going to make too many movies about two countries that sat together and just didn't fight. It's like conflict is what makes stories, because conflict is where we make our decisions in our life.
And that's a lot of what the Christian faith is founded on, right? It was written, and doctrines were basically they were all about conflict.
Right. So, and I've got a bunch of quotes here. I'm going to bring them in every once in a while. So we have this quote from Matthew 26, where Jesus is being confronted, and he says, "Put your swords back in your place, or back in its place." Jesus said to him, "For all who draw the sword will die by the sword." And this it sounds so cliche, but there's a lot there. And this is why I'm a tentative pacifist, I guess.
A moderate.
Conditional pacifist. Yeah, I'm a moderate in like everything. It's like, which pisses everyone off.
Moderatism should be a thing.
I think they're calling it centrism now in the political sphere, but a lot of places do call it a moderate, but yeah, it's the piss everyone in the world off card. But anyway, so this quote, is it a quote? Did Jesus say it? Oh, okay. Well, it's up to you whether it's a quote or a citation. So, put your sword back in its place, like get rid of your sword. For all who draw the sword will die by the sword. Okay, that sounds deep. And he goes on to say, like, do not think that I cannot summon, a host of archangels to defend me, but I wouldn't, because I'm better than that. That's not who I am. That's not the kind of guy. Like, I am capable of wrath, but I will not. And I'm warning you that if you commit this violence, would be doing more harm to yourself than to me, because I can die. I'll just die. Like, but you'll go on fighting this battle that has nothing to do with me. So, you stab a guy, and you stab another guy, and you stab another guy, and then you are caught in this, you're almost trapped in this violence that has nothing to do with the people you're hurting, really. You are worried. your fear. And this is why I keep bringing this up in all our podcasts, is that fear is the actual enemy that drives us to do all this. I'm afraid, so I'm going to lash out and try and, fight this weird fight that I think I need to fight. Now, you will, like, so he doesn't get stabbed, obviously, but he gets taken away. Now,
He probably wishes he did, though. That would be a way better death than being crucified.
well, another guy had to stab Jesus, but it's kind of part of the action.
That was a spear, though. It's
Yeah,
kinda
it was
different.
a spear. Thanks for I didn't thanks for getting that.
The jab.
Yeah. So there's another from that same book, I believe very early on. You have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. I say to you, do not resist those who are evil. But if anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn him to the other also. Okay, so I'm not saying, now this is preaching that, violence is a trap, obviously. Now, what I'm interested in is the cycle that he's referencing here, that Matthew, I guess, is talking about, because my thought is that when you say all who draw the sword will die by the sword, isn't that like, you're just, if you're going to go into battle, you're going to die in battle, that's where you're going to meet your end? Well, yes, but you are stuck on a wheel of fire, as I guess King Lear would have said, and this wheel, it turns, you run over somebody, and then somebody runs over you. So it keeps coming back upon you.
It fuels the momentum, in other words, right?
Right. So you stab somebody, they stab you. When does it end? Until there's only one person left. Then they're king of nothing mountain. And there's no point to that. The end result of your actions lends not only you to die by the sword, but everyone you love will die in the same way. And we have been fighting this fight, and it's almost in our nature, at least in our old nature. We've been a lot more peaceful in the last 100 years in a very strange way, because it's almost, well, we've been living longer, we've been drinking less as a society, we've been thinking
We're more educated.
Yeah. We're less impulsive, but like I'm saying, on a whole, we can always come up with exceptions on the micro level.
I
Now,
almost think we just sort of shifted our obsessions over from violence and stuff to like sport and games and entertainment and things like that, to sort of as an outlet for it.
I've been thinking that too, because I'll watch a hockey game, and well, sometimes me and Megan will say stuff like, 300 years ago or 200 years ago, all these men would have been soldiers, and now, yeah, we're letting them hit each other, but like, they get off the ice, they're hitting each other, beating each other up. They get off the ice, and you put them in a bar together, it'll be amicable for the most part.
Yeah, and they shake hands before they even get off the ice.
Right. And this is peaceful. Now they do sacrifice other things, like, their body at 45, but they also get money. So shucks.
Concussion and brain trauma.
Yeah.
That's a subject of another discussion, though.
Yeah, I almost want to bring in Megan's brother to talk about that. He was a football player, so he'd have more insight. That'd be a good episode. Anyway, so where was I? So we've got this in prehistory, we're competing tribes for very little food because we didn't have the technology to grow very much, and we were spending all of our time, and we didn't know what was over the hill, and over the hill was probably actually barbarians coming to take your stuff and women. And now we know who's over the hill, and we're hoping he has an internet connection so he can talk to us, which is different. So and we also hope they have the freedom to talk to us, because we want friends. But over the hill would have been a guy with a sword who wants to take your stuff, because um, it was a booty economy. You go and you take. You don't grow and create value. And it's you take by the sword, and that's your economy. You look at the Vikings, who were their economy was built around farming to small extent, and raiding. Everything they had was brought in from outside, to them for the most part. And economies existed like this for thousands of years, with a few exceptions being some of the larger centralized parts of the larger empires.
How much of that do you think was extortion? Like the Vikings going to a lord from nearby and saying, "Hey, you either prepare grains of rice for us, or we'll come back every 2 months for your rice, and if you don't have it, we'll steal it."
Well, the feudal system can be seen as a complex system of extortion.
No, but I meant from the Vikings over to the people they were raiding, as opposed to just going and destroying everything every time they raided. It would probably be a lot more economical for them. Long-term sustainability, I'm talking.
Well, they were thinking about that with the when they hit Britain, and they saw the weak Saxon kingdoms, and they were going in, and sometimes they extorted, but oftentimes the thing with the Vikings specifically was they liked to raid. It was part of their culture to, well, if you read their stories, well, we need to find peace. No, attack, fight. Like their entire culture is built around like, so we set, if you come home and you come to your wife who you haven't seen in 4 months, and you're like, oh, we got all this booty and we didn't have to kill anyone. Your wife looks at you like, you did what? You didn't kill people to get this? There's no honor in that. Like, I'm married to a warrior and he did what? I set up a peace treaty, and actually we have trading partners now. And she's like, oh. There's that expectation in that society of committing violence.
Is that sort of like the Mongol hordes too?
Yeah, that too. They were go around, take, move on. It's very locust behavior. But the Viking, that raiding behavior, kind of coalesced into exactly what you were kind of describing, into a feudal system of extortion from the bottom, like extortion from the top, taking from the bottom, and they just like the tides all the way up. And you get one guy who's got like, I need more gold rings. You know what? I'm bored. Let's do war. And so everyone's fighting for everyone, but yeah, anyway, so I'm getting a little off track, because this is actually useful, because we go back. And we get this. So we've talked about an eye for an eye, and we got this cycle. Now we go back, and you can say, well, whose fault is it? Well, it's the Germans' fault because they did World War II. Well, no, but the French invaded us in the Franco-Prussian War. Well, yeah, well, Napoleon, blah blah blah. Well, the British. Well, actually, it's this, and you keep going back, and you go back, and you hit, like it doesn't. There isn't even a starting cause, because we create new slights, and we can go back and find two cavemen hitting each other with sticks, and it's still not the beginning. It's violence is almost part of our nature.
Yeah, look at chimps.
Yeah, exactly. There, when we've done the anthropological studies of chimps, we found it's like, oh boy, that's some genocidal behavior there. But it's about protecting the gene, the underlying mechanism, which is what we're essentially vessels for putting forward our genetic data. So you have this rudimentary behavior for doing that. Now, our rudimentary behavior led us to do something like, we can still do that. We can have our cake and eat it too. We can protect our genetic data and not commit atrocious acts of violence. Now, this is somewhat new. Well, it's not really new, because 2,000 years ago, some guy was standing out and being like, okay, the meek shall inherit the earth. Those who for all who draw the sword will die by the sword, and it's 2,000 years ago. And you have these, it's not a new idea. You can see it in all these old stories, although a lot of them end up, this is the true path. It'll kill you though. And the hubris that you think you can, go over the nature, especially in the Greek mythology. But it's like,
well, even Hindu society had a lot of that in it too, eh?
Yeah.
The peace versus peace above all else kind of ideas.
Yeah. And it took it as a nobler path, which it is. And now, one of the ways I think I should get into this is you have this wheel and going back as far as we can tell, rolling over everyone and causing the survivors to, get back on the wheel. And we've been fighting this battle for so long. We've forgotten why we're fighting. We don't really know. And this happens all the time. He's like, why do you hate them? Well, because they're on the other side. Or they're these guys and they did this to that and whatever. And it's just like, okay. And we fight them because that's what we do. I have decided I am this, and I've decided they are that. And
is that like a latent subconscious idea that people have, that they fight because they do it, or are they actively engaging because it stimulates them viscerally?
Yeah, I think it's part of it. It does feel good, we were the good guys, they were the bad guys, and they made a very satisfying thump when they hit the ground. That kind of
producing heroes and legends and things like that too.
I don't really have anything against heroes, especially if they're mythological. Everyone's saying, oh, your hero is actually just a man. It's like, yeah. Now, there are certain people we can probably consider heroes. Yes, but there's still people. It's like, yeah, but Martin Luther King is probably pretty darn close. And I was teaching something about the Berlin airdrop, and there was a American Air Force general who orchestrated the whole thing. And I was just like, okay, this guy who fed an entire city for like a year, he did some like pretty heroic stuff. That's a pretty cool thing he did. And they are out there, and they're few and far between, and that's probably for the best. Although we can strive to be heroes, but it's harder. But we look towards the moral qualities of our fictional heroes who can't be corrupted by being tired and saying one thing out of order, and I'm in the washroom. Heroes don't poop. But something like Luke Skywalker or something, or just these ideals of morality that we have, and I think there's something to that, but that's for another podcast. What I'm interested in is doing for yourself and others something that will stop it. Now,
you're saying forgiveness is that key?
Yeah, it's one of the keys. It's not a panacea. It's something that you can do in certain situations that will help. Now, it's not going to stop a flood, but it'll take a load off your shoulders. It'll stop you from engaging in useless battles with people that don't care. And it's helped me in a lot of things. So one of the things I do in my relationship is I realize that I screw up sometimes. So I'll get angry at something stupid, or I'll get tired or something. And what I'll do is I'll own up to it. I'll go up and I'll be like, I did this, and it's hard because it's really hard because you have to go up there and say, I did this. I know it was wrong, and I'm asking for forgiveness. And then we were able to talk about it. And once it's on the table, it becomes nothing. It just becomes something that happened. And it's hard. It's still hard, even after years and years of marriage. And we both do this because it just gets it out of the way. The thing that this little tick on our shoulder, it doesn't become this giant bugbear yelling in our ear that destroys a relationship. We get rid of it as soon as possible. So even if it's the smallest thing, it's like
It never has a chance to snowball and become a big thing.
right. And even if it is a big thing, it just takes a longer forgiveness process. So I did this, and you know, they say, okay, yeah, that was pissing me off too. And then, you know, the other side almost has to forgive too. It's like, yeah, I am sorry I held a grudge, but then I was like, no. And then it ends up being like this mushy thing that no one wants to watch. But
I love that shit.
yeah, but like this happens. This is part of what, you know, I value the relationship between, you know, my wife or a friend or a business partner or anyone more than I do winning this battle. Now the thing is that on the inside, I feel like the battle is the only thing that's important. There's nothing more important than this battle. And that is a lie. So you need to, and this,
It's like an instinctive lie, right? Like it's not an intentional thing.
Because it makes sense in Paleolithic times for us to be like, they threw a rock at our tribe. Well, what are we going to do? Oh boy. Well, I don't know what we're going to do, but we're going to be doing a whole lot of it. We're going to be doing it at night so they don't see us coming.
Let's prepare a pile of good sharp rocks.
Yeah. We'll donate it to their tribe. Yeah. So it's this mechanism. And I think Christianity is probably, and I bring it up because they are probably the it's come up in others, but I think Christianity probably focused on it the most, and almost the most effectively, because now there are others, and because you have this idea of Christian charity. I know you're wretched and poor and want to bite my hand, but I'm gonna try and help as much as I can anyways. And people put themselves in those Christians that we see as exemplars of Christianity. They quietly go about doing good in our neighborhoods and society and don't make a big fuss about, you know, what they're doing. Those are the actual Christians. They go about doing good and granting forgiveness, you know, feeding the poor. It's like, it's okay. You still deserve to eat. It's okay. And they go and they do that because you have the Les Miserables on the bottom there, the forgotten people. They need this more than anyone else because the desperation drives people to do things that, you know, in my world without that desperation would be completely unconscionable. And they need it more than anybody. But it's not just about forgiving others or God's forgiveness, which I'm not really going to get into. If you want to learn about God's forgiveness for humanity or for you, go to church, read the Bible. I don't know. Or,
there's a ton of Christian podcasts and stuff that'll teach it to you. I mean,
yeah,
that is like the fundamental premise of the religion, is that Jesus died, Christianity, and he died for specifically the forgiveness of people's sins. So it's pretty much embedded into any Christian.
Yeah, I'd say read some Augustine, but then don't take him too seriously. But then answer the question, what is sin? Actually. And then you can move on from there. And then you'll find out why God's actually necessary.
The term actually derived from math.
Yeah. Does it actually? I keep hearing
archery, but
archery, yeah.
Yeah.
But original
sin
is
the mark.
There's a few concepts that we think are like, oh, that's stupid. Like, the more I think about it, the more original sin is kind of a neat metaphor for our underlying negative traits.
Yeah, like our nature.
Yeah. So what I wanted to get at is our forgiveness, not, you know, someone will always forgive me no matter what I do. It's like, it's not that simple, but it is a mechanism that we can have between each other. So we're going to explore that a bit. And you also need to forgive yourself for stuff that you've done, which I've been kind of segueing in slowly too. Because we do things to ourselves that we wouldn't even imagine doing to other people. We tell ourselves terrible stories. We deprecate, um, ad nauseum. It can be healthy. Push harder, go, get faster. You're not good enough. Do another rep. Read another book. Do
But it's
this. You're not
also easy to delve into like nihilism and defeatist
right.
mentalities and stuff from it too, right?
Yeah, that drive becomes destructive, and you end up being um doing more harm than good. Yeah, you need to be hard on yourself, but um there's a line, and like, well, nothing matters, so I can just cut. And then you have scars to show, but you also have like, why did I do that? And you're literally hurting yourself. Or well, we've all done things that we regret. Why did past me do that? You have to forgive past you, even though he did those cringy things that you don't want to think about. But every time you think about them in the shower right before bed, you just, why did I do that? And you don't even want to forgive yourself for that, because it's just, you don't even want it to be in your past history. We all
Yeah,
have
like a
those.
shameful memory kind of thing.
Yeah, I can't believe I said that in public, or did that, or acted like that. Now, if you do that too often, the thing is that forgiveness allows you to move forward. And this is, I think, one of the best features of this mechanism. Try forgiveness. It's great. It's free, but takes a lot of effort.
But it's expensive.
It's expensive. It's expensive in the short term. It's very
But it's free.
It's free. It's very expensive in the short term. But in the long term, it's like a delete button that takes all your effort to push down. But once it's pushed, and if you push it properly, but it's something that lets you move forward with your own future, with the future with others, or a future as a group. It gives you future, and it clears the path to allow it. Now, that doesn't mean you forget. Forgiveness is not forgetting. Forgiveness is not pacifism. Forgiveness is not a lot of things. It's just forgiveness, which is why it's not a panacea. If someone's actually attacking you, maybe you should go get the tanks, because we built those for a reason. It wasn't just job creation. So that's kind of what I want to get into.
And I
So
think you hit the nail on the head there too. Like with forgiveness allowing you to move on, I think it's pretty much the only first step that you can guarantee is necessary if you want to get past. I don't want to overuse the word traumatic, but like a starkly negative event or transgression, let's say. You need to start with forgiveness, because otherwise you're just sort of side skirting around the actual pain that you're still experiencing,
right.
which is needless. It's only going to anchor you rather than help you explore your boundaries or move on.
So one of the things is that I don't consider. Sorry, you made an amazing point. I'm just gonna
Oh,
move
I was
on,
quoting
because
you.
you just said it, and I was just like, yeah, that. So one of the things is forgiveness is in response to an injustice or an perceived injustice, and forgiveness is, again, not justice. So let's just underline that forgiveness is not justice. It happens at similar times to it, often, but it's not. So, but the thing is that the question, I guess, is, does the person have to ask for it? If they don't, it's like, oh, I forgive you. And it's just like, oh, jerk. But it has to be it's not just a you thing, it's the other person. So you have to like almost sit the person down in an awkward form and be like, I'm sorry. Say it through your teeth, because that, are you sorry? It's like, yes, but I still hate you. You're still allowed to hate the person after. That's okay. Forgiveness doesn't absolve hatred, but allows you to work together. You can work with people you don't like. That's how we get through our day. But it's a two-party thing. So if okay, sorry. To me, an injustice. So if someone actually asks for forgiveness from me, usually I don't grant it because usually I don't really see it as an injustice. Now, this kind of sounds pompous as heck, but bear with me because I'm Canadian. So we ask for forgiveness a lot. I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. Now I'm just going, don't apologize unless you consciously um, did something against me. Otherwise, it's just you're making the word meaningless. So unless you were actively malevolent against me or did something that uh, out of negligence or something, then I would want one. But like if you just bump into me and say, "Oh, I'm sorry," I'm just like, dude, like I don't. It's okay. Doesn't matter.
Which
But
sort of shows an intent of
yeah,
remorse.
intent is
It's like
important,
a communication more so than an actual literal apology.
which is why it's so hard because you did something that you thought was not, which was in your interest. So you did it in the past. Now, we are very biased towards the people that are ourselves, but and we tend to think like I did it, so I'm not gonna, I'm gonna defend my actions as part of it. So I guess step one is admitting that there's a problem. I did something wrong. Now, it usually comes from the fact that there's enmity between a person. Now, if you care about the enmity, then that means that there is at least a hope. You seem to, okay, there's a problem between me and my um, someone in my family. So I could just not care and move on. But I want to have a functioning family because that's important. Yes, it is important. And I see the reason. So this isn't a selfless act. Both parties want something. It's a give and take. But I need to trade forgiveness. I need to trade apology for forgiveness so that I can keep it. Now, this is a very ideal situation. One party acknowledges their mistake, another party, and this can be done through self um, self-realization. You meditate on it. You're like, oh, this is the thing that's bugging me. You come to the guy's door in the middle of the night and be like, I'm sorry. God, okay, finally got it off my chest. Now,
But it
you can
almost sounds like that type of apology is more for the person themselves than it is for the person they're apologizing to. It's like to relieve their own guilt, they need to do it. And
well,
how
that's
does that sort of jive when it's a selfish apology versus is that still sincere in
it
your
can
opinion?
be. I think it can be. Because if you coerce someone into asking for forgiveness, the other thing is that society is watching. Um, and forgiveness is now this kind of gets into game theory, I guess. I work with you, you work with me, you work with me, I cheat you. Hmm. Okay, then you cheat me, and then and I cheat you, and then okay. Then I come to you and I say, okay, let's not do this, and then we do tit for tat, and then we'll all go back to things. So these things don't happen in a vacuum. So because people are watching, because we have a society, and it's just because it's self-serving doesn't mean it's immoral. Is kind of what I'm saying here. Um, you saw someone cheat another person, and then they made amends. Okay, so we can play again. Now, if they cheat again, well, we can't trust them again. It's like a repeat offender, essentially. You can't. It's like, dude, this is the third time this month that we've caught you stealing cars. Like, we gave you a warning because you were in with a bad crowd. Blah 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 blah. We forgave you tentatively, but you think we're going to forgive you again? No, no, no. You have to earn your forgiveness through community service, incarceration, blah 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 blah. Or if this is 300 years ago, cutting off your hand, and then no forgiveness. So it the reputation of an individual is also part of their social capital that they have, and if And part of that is trust. I want people to trust me again. I want people. So the person asking for forgiveness is asking to be let back into the game. And the person granting the forgiveness is they're acting as a gatekeeper, essentially, but they're also issuing a warning. If you do that, like, I'm going to grant you this because I will feel magnanimous in my forgiveness, but they'll also issuing a warning. Don't. We're watching. Society's watching. It's unconscious. It's not like somebody's keeping tally. It doesn't work like that. But
is that part of every piece of forgiveness? Is there always like an element to a warning, like don't do it again?
To some extent, because I go up, like, even when I go up to my wife and I do something stupid, I'll say, like, I learned my lesson. I am growing as a person, because you have that element of it, right? It's like you do something stupid, you say something stupid. It's just like, I have learned to be more than I was. I learned that I was immoral then, and now I will be more moral now, or at least I'll try. And for a time, you watch each other, especially if it's a grievous. If I'm just like pulling her pigtails or something and she just gets annoyed, then I'll just ask for forgiveness, and I'll just be like, okay, I didn't notice the signs, now I know the signs, and won't do that when that thing. But if I do something heinous, then forgiveness needs to be earned to some extent, because you need to have that relationship of trust built back up. Because when there's trust, then people can do business, they can engage in relationships, and then peace can flourish. Now, that's kind of, but they have to kind of ask for it in that scenario, because it's like, oh, I'm sorry, I want to be let back into the game. Please forgive me. I see what I was wrong. Or you get, like, oftentimes it's not enough. They'll try and get away with having, cheat again. They'll try and get away with asking forgiveness falsely. It's like, oh, I know what it was wrong, but he had it coming. Ugh. Or, well, they were, they're part of that political party. So bleh. It's like, it's not a very good forgiveness. That's not a very good.
A lot of people do that. Or not even a lot of people. I think we all do that to some degree. Like, we make excuses to sort of justify our own actions, or at least the severity of our actions, to ourselves. Like, a lot of people will find it easier to ask for a simple forgiveness, or what's that quote? It's easier to ask for forgiveness than to ask for permission, something like that.
Oh yeah, so
I can't remember who quoted that, but
yeah, I don't even know who that is. I don't know, look it up.
yeah,
but yeah,
everybody knows it.
Yeah, it's easier for ask for forgiveness than ask for permission. Now,
like, that sort of falls into that line where you're making an excuse for what you're doing, and because you can justify it morally to yourself, you feel only kind of like socially obligated to offer an apology just because that's the convention of the day.
yeah,
It's not really sincere, though, in my opinion, when it's just a matter of routine. Like,
well,
that's even more heinous than committing the act and
yeah,
not considering the other person at all.
I'm definitely guilty of that. I refinished the balcony paint on my balcony. And I didn't tell him. It's just like, well, if he finds out, he'll ask for forgiveness. I'm not even asking for permission. I'm just gonna refinish the balcony, and so I sanded off the rust and gave it a coat of black paint, and it's just like, there.
Or like,
there.
I rendered our last video before getting approval from you on the background.
Yeah. Oh no. Like that's just expediency, and I don't think what I was doing was immoral.
No, but what you were doing was expediency too. You wanted the balcony painted, right?
So, but then there's a thing like, he was in my way, so I shot him in the face. Yes, but you shot him 48 times. It's like, well, he had it coming. No.
In the back.
Yeah, and then.
But how does that play into forgiveness is sort of what I was asking. Like,
well, I guess that because everything's circumstantial in this, so you have to.
But does an insincere apology warrant sincere forgiveness?
To me, that's just more cheating. And someone can be taken in it. Like, you get someone who's overly trustworthy, or they just think the person's so handsome and dashing that they'll forgive anything. That but
Speaking from personal experience there. Or
uh maybe what'll it get me? No.
what? I'm going to render a little twinkle in your eye when you say that.
So the what was I talking about? Oh yeah.
I guess what I'm coming down to is the value of is the sincerity of forgiveness contingent, or does it hinge upon the sincerity of the apology, or is it still advisable to award forgiveness, or is there like maybe there's a gradient of forgiveness in between,
Well,
absolute and not at all?
I guess it all comes again. It's a gradient that keeps changing based on situation. So if you are convicted of stealing a car, and you get sent to jail, and you're like, sucks being in jail for a year or something, and all of a sudden this jail guy comes out, and you're like, what do you want? And he's like, okay, we're letting you out. And you're like, why? I've been here 2 weeks. It's like, well, we went to war, and they're attacking, and they're aliens, and we need you on the front line, so you're forgiven, and here's a gun. So
By the way, you have a job now.
or like we have that in Canada, we have that new legislation with the legalization of weed, and so it makes sense now in our minds. Why wouldn't we forgive small, like, possession and trafficking charges when it's legal now? Which, it's like, yeah, because it was illegal then. Well, okay, that's correct. But maybe we could show a little clemency, be the bigger person in history, and there's definitely that strain going through. It kind of waxes and wanes as things do. And back then it was, this is drugs, but now it's like, this is weed, everyone's got it. And society didn't collapse, so maybe we should help a few people out by forgiveness. And they're asking for it, but maybe they're not, and they just like either get a letter in the mail and they say, oh yeah, BT dubs, your that weed charge you have is no longer on the books. And they're like, oh, that's nice. They're living a fine life anyway. They didn't matter to them, or something. They got through life without it anyways. So it's very circumstantial. Now, my question is, can we forgive someone if they don't ask for it? You just go up to someone and be like, I know what you did was wrong, but I see that you've changed as a person, and I just want you to know that you're still like, I don't hold you any enmity towards you anymore. And the guy's like, oh, that's great. Or what? And
Or they tell you to shove off.
yeah, now that was one of the things I was going to get into, was false forgiveness. And I thought that would be almost a small thing, because you see the those Hare Krishnas, historically, I guess that's historically now, but they'd come up to people and, here's a flower, and then be like, oh, that's neat, and they give a little Hare Krishna wisdom, and which it's kind of just like, sounds nice, it's all cryptic, but doesn't really mean anything. I said it. But and then they ask you for money. It's just like, oh, you jerks. But then you get, sometimes the Christians do this, and they'll like ambush you and forgive you.
Catholicism is founded on paying for forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like, that's the whole fundamental premise to their creed.
Yeah, I met a few Christians who, you mentioned the Catholic Church, and it's just like,
well, that's what Lutheranism was, right? And
yeah.
Protestantism. It was the rejection of Catholic charging people essentially for,
I'd say
absolution.
Luther didn't really expect that when he was nailing that stuff to the wall, he was he thought of himself as a bit of a scholar and reformer, and he actually didn't think that the 95 Theses were, this big thing that would change the world. He was just, it was a scholarly thing, and everyone just read it and was like, yeah. And all of a sudden they're like, down with the Catholic Church, and he's like, wait,
But he did know he was risking his life nailing it to the door, though.
he did know there was an element to it. He thought that he didn't think anyone would take it. He thought it would only be read by a couple scholars in the town. But the Catholic Church got a hold of it, and they're like, what is this? And circumstances be what they were at that time. And he leaned into it, essentially. Yeah, that whole, you will be forgiven and sent from purgatory into heaven when you pay money. It's like, that's holding forgiveness hostage. That's not how forgiveness works. So you're forgiving someone so they can get into heaven, which is the whole point of Jesus coming down saying, I forgive all of humanity because I know that they're inherently sinful. So God in all his clemency will grant forgiveness. You have to earn it, because you have to earn it, and then you can go to heaven. Now the Catholic Church is saying, yeah, you got to earn it, but part of earning it is cha-ching. So that's part of that, holding. I guess that's not really.
That sort of falls under the fake forgiveness, is why I bring it up,
because
you
that
had
would be
mentioned
like holding forgiveness for ransom. But
yeah, that's pretty fake, though.
Well, then there's token forgiveness, forgiveness for political means of or public forgiveness, or like you get a hockey player who did a stupid thing, and then they go in front of the media saying, I am sorry, I am so sorry, I did the thing.
Like BP's oil spill.
Well, I'm thinking even, yes, like BP's oil spill.
The CEO going on TV and like saying, I'm so sorry, when they tried to like hide it and not install redundant safety valves and things like that.
Okay, token false forgiveness. Yeah, that's kind of like that. I'm sorry, we'll make better boats. We'll do this. You're not even going to pay attention. You're going to forget about us in 10 seconds once the McDonald's commercial runs. Just kind of like, but you get these, so people understand how forgiveness works almost instinctually. Like so you realize that these companies realize that, and they do the thing, or you get celebrities coming out being like, oh, I'm so sorry I said that thing on Twitter in 2008. I didn't know the depth of my misunderstanding. And they're sitting there being like, what the heck is going on? Just say it. And they're like, it's just like, just say the thing. And like and I'm just like reading the tweet going like, I don't see it, but okay. And now he's saying that. All right. And like, or you listen to a podcast online, and then 2 days later they come up with an apology for something that you didn't even know needed to be apologized for. And that's kind of worrying. But
like wearing blackface in high school.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really happy with him right now. But if you've watched enough of our podcasts, you can probably figure out why I'm not happy with him.
It has nothing to do with something he did as a teenager.
No, I like, oh, he wore blackface as a teenager. It's like, dude, teenagers are the dumbest people ever. I know, because I was one and I met a lot of them.
Yeah, and they sold it in stores, so obviously adults didn't think it was wrong, and he wasn't an adult yet. But
then like you get that was that the Community episode where one guy dresses up as a dark elf, and it's like, we can't do it's blackface. It's like, that is not a forgivable offense.
Yeah,
it's not offense. He's like,
but it falls under that fake apology thing where they force people to like apologize for something they didn't even consider offensive.
So to grant and ask for, the whole mechanism of forgiveness requires there to actually be an offense, and for it to be sincere, and for the mechanism to work through its entire continuum between like, you did something bad, you feel guilt, then you admit you feel guilt, and then after the admittance of feel guilt, you make a show of guilt by saying, I am sorry, and then you ask for it. But then you ask for it from the person who can actually absolve you. Now we have proxies in the form of I guess we have wise men, priests, and we have
Lawyers,
the justice
judges.
system. Well, and the justice system, well, I've been forgiven by the justice system before. You have too. I remember one particular
Oh yeah,
instance.
yeah, I have several
Um,
times.
yeah. When there's that thing and the cop comes by and he sees you and you're just all like, I don't know, the fireworks did the thing, and you're just like, and the cop's like, it's cool, we're out of here.
Mm.
You've just been forgiven. They have the authority to do that, but like at the same time, if you say something to a a loved one and it was in bad taste, or you are estranged or something, and you try and make amends or something that you feel guilt about, you have to go to that person or to a representative or a proxy of that person, someone who can grant it. Not anyone can grant it. That's why I'm saying this is circumstantial, and and if you don't know, then you're lying to yourself. Now the worst thing is if anyone related to that is deceased, because then you're going to have to deal with that yourself. You ask forgiveness from a deceased person, and you're gonna have to work that out for a long time.
And that's sort of like dealing with forgiving yourself for something, right? That sort of falls more into that category once they're gone.
Yeah. Well, yeah, because I was talking earlier about forgiving yourself for stuff you do to yourself, but you will have to work this out for yourself, because you have to examine your guilt and examine, what you did wrong, how you can correct it, blah 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 blah, and what you can do better in the future. I think these are like think pieces now in school that they force them to do, which are like just proxy introspective thought. But they yeah, you have to go through that, and it's not a easy process, because you have to admit that to yourself that what you did was wrong, and you have to go through it again. You have to be honest with yourself, because rebuilding yourself and change is always a difficult process, because you're confronting the things and the suppositions that make you you, and you have to almost change reality. I guess you could call it like cognitive behavioral therapy to some extent, but I think maybe cognitive behavioral therapy is taking a bunch of these old mechanisms and you know fleshing them out in a scientific manner. So it's like, here's how it actually works.
Mm.
But we've known a lot of these mechanisms instinctually for a very, very long time. Hence why we have these sacred books of religion and philosophy that people read and go, there's something here. I'm going to try this based on what I've done. And this happens. And
that's sort of like a natural truth arising just from like generation after generation of people thinking and communicating amongst themselves, right?
mhm. And I think,
So it's not
yeah.
literally word for word that they're telling
Oh,
you
no.
exactly what is part of human nature. It's just like the ideas kind of
Yeah.
coalesce themselves.
Yeah. It's, if you've ever read poetry, this, you don't, you never, it's like, I don't get it. It's like, you're not supposed to. You're supposed to be like, and you read it and you think it's kind of like this, and you kind of end up at some truth accidentally, and then you read it again and you realize it wasn't accidentally. It's like, okay, these words came together to say something. But then you read another book and the ideas are there too, in completely different words. So you have infinite variation to of the same idea, in most every idea, because our words are insufficient, which is why it's so much more important to try to this, to enunciate these ideas that are not easy to say. Now we all kind of understand instinctively forgiveness, but I think it's very valuable to actually go through it ad nauseum forever and all time, because this is something I think personally that needs to be reinforced. Keep going with your forgiveness, keep going for your, like, try and get out of your guilt, try and get out of your self-loathing, because this guilt causes stress. And I'm not going to go into some mystical stuff saying guilt will ravage your soul, blah 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 blah, which is just a metaphor for causes stress causes harm on your system, it causes strain on your system, strain leads to damage in your system, and your physical body is you. And if your physical body is hurt by stress, well, guess what? You're hurt, and now you're not as effective. And maybe now so like it's you can become a tragedy of your own making. And whether you want to call it, damage to the soul or damage to the person, it's the same thing. And self-loathing and hate and regret from these things will reinforce the negative tendencies, and confronting the darker side of your actions will allow you to move on from them. And I think forgiveness is the thing that does that. You can, it's like, oh, I hurt them, so then I got rid of them. You could go, you harm somebody and then they die, and you're like, oh, good, they're dead, I'm absolved of my sin. No, you still did the thing. Like, if they were alive still, they'd still hate you. Just because they're dead, now nobody's going to find out about your indiscretion. So, but you still did the thing. It's still inside of your head. It's still eating away at you, and you have to deal with it. You have to confront the things that are torturing you, because they'll become, like you said earlier, they'll become bigger and they'll destroy you. And that is through, self-loathing and stress and poor psychological, and you end up with a different perspective. You go from you could go from being a hopeful person to being someone who doesn't care anymore. You start dabbling in nihilism and solipsism, which allows you to rationalize anything. So, and then you start looking for targets. So one of the things that I think, I'm going to kind of segue here again to another topic.
Well, before you do, let me just point out one thing that you're saying, that just for clarity's sake, I guess what you're saying is it sort of compounds on itself. Your quality of life is impacted by it, right? Whether that's your emotional quality of life or your relationships, or just like the desecration of your core values. As you stated before, it's like a core value protection mechanism kind of deal. I think that is, it's like a tool or an action that you can take to protect yourself, like your inner self, from harm. Not like physical harm, but like forgiveness helps protect your mind and body from the stress of compounding anxieties, basically, is what you're getting at, right?
Yeah, and you can easily dig yourself a hole in your I guess we could call it a couple of things, in your soul, in your
essence,
your psychological makeup, and there's a lot of names for this, but it's like, don't compound your woe. And a lot of that comes from where you place the blame for the injustices that happen in your own life, I find. Because it's a lot more useful to me, and I've been a lot more I've had a lot more utility in the utilitarian sense. That which does more utility does more good, a la John Stuart Mill or Bentham, but I like Mill better than Bentham. But it's done me more utility to place blame for things that happen at my own feet. It's an internal structure, and rarely do I have the almost privilege, I guess, because it's easier to place blame on others. I can't believe you've done this. I can't believe you have done this. Is a rare thing, because I'm actually very rarely the target of malicious behavior. Maybe because because maybe it's easier for me now to place the blame at my own feet, an internal locus of guilt. So, in like psychology, first year psychology courses, they're saying like a lot of the things that happen to people happens externally, but I find that to be very unhealthy, because you are responsible for the actions of your body and the actions of your person, and the fact that you see like things externally, you're just dealing with external forces oppressing you or this or that, and it's always other people acting upon you, and you're dealing with external people, because the world is a place where everyone's out for each other. That's the most cynical BS I have ever heard, and it's constant because
And it's lazy too.
It's lazy because you are one of those people that are acting on other people.
Yeah.
So it's easier for me to say, okay, what did I do wrong in this situation? What am I doing wrong? Now, people do, and I've done malicious things. I'm not a saint. By far, I'm not a saint. But I try to be at least good.
And you make up for it when you slip up. You try and, I know this just from having known you for so long. Like, if you do slip up and apologize, you actually go out of your way to try and show affection to sort of prove that you're sincere. Not proof as in I don't believe you, but as an extra show of apology. A lot of people don't do that when they don't take ownership of their own issues, right? Say they'll offend somebody, they'll throw out that casual fake apology, and they'll never take ownership of the harm they've caused from that.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, maybe that's a natural thing that I do now, but I can't think of an instance of me doing that. I don't know. Let's not.
Oh, I can give you tons.
let's not get bogged down in examples.
Yeah.
I do prefer to be
humble. Yes,
humble.
I know.
It's like
that's why I'm saying it and you're not. I'm saying there is another way of going about it where you can show emphasis to an apology as well. So there's ways of decorating apologies, I guess is what I'm getting at, to put it lightly.
Yeah, and I think that forgiveness has to come from that place of realization, because you can't really say, I did it because, I'm part of the lower class and I just needed to. It's like, okay, your desperation does not allow you the privilege of theft. I'm sorry. No. And you do have to deal with your circumstances, and that's a tragedy, but it's a tragedy for all of us, because all of our lives are tragedies, especially if you love anybody. Life becomes that much more tragic the moment you start caring for somebody, or
for them and you.
Yeah, and it's worth it, but it's hard, and it's hard for everybody, and we need to realize that. And that's why we ask for forgiveness, because we are all in this together. We're all in the same boat. And that's why we brought up game theory, because we're all playing the game. We're all in this game, and we start cheating, and cheating in the game theory sense. You make the malicious move instead of the cooperative move.
That might be a good place to sort of lead into a quick break, and then when we come back, we can get more into like the game theory and the cycle of violence.
I'd like to get into the cycle of violence. I'd also like to get into, actually, yeah. So I would like to start part 2 with with part of one of the best and most famous examples of forgiveness. And no, it's not the clemency of Caesar, because that was a very self-serving forgiveness. Although it did keep the peace. He did avoid a lot of battles by forgiving his enemies. Look into it. Read the commentaries. He was a very smart guy, even if he was a bit of a butcher. So I'll see you in part 2, and we'll be right back.
All right. Thanks, guys. Talk to you soon.